Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the slow swirl of steam, soap, and sunlight filtering through linen, a world where laundry isn't just a chore, but an entire social ritual. You're waking up in the heart of the Ottoman Empire, where the day starts early, the water flows freely, and someone's always rinsing something in the courtyard. The sound that pulls you from sleep isn't an alarm clock. It's the melodic izan, the call to prayer, drifting gently from a distant minaret. The sky above you is just beginning to lighten, the deep blue shifting into a soft gold. You blink up from your woven mat, stretch under the flowering fig tree, and hear the faint flapping of damp cloth. Your neighbor, 2 courtyards over, is already pinning her linens to the drying line, humming something vaguely triumphant. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as always, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit up, the morning air crisp against your skin, and glance around your shared courtyard. It's a modest space, arched colonnades, a central fountain gurgling softly, and clusters of rosemary and mint brushing against weathered stone. Chickens strut with misguided confidence. There's a sleepy goat in the corner, typical Tuesday. You rub your eyes and take in the sight of long strings crisscrossing above the courtyard, today's laundry lines, weighted with wooden pins and optimism. Most are still empty, but one diligent neighbor has already secured a row of cotton towels. They drip methodically, each droplet catching the sun like tiny sparks. In the Ottoman world, this courtyard isn't just domestic, it's communal, rhythmic, and alive. Historians still argue whether this informal architectural layout was primarily for climate control or social cohesion. But either way, it keeps things lively. You see windows cracked open just wide enough for a peek, and you're pretty sure one of the grandmothers is already judging your late start. You splash water on your face from a ceramic basin and tie a cotton sash around your waist. Your own laundry? A pile of crumpled garments sits accusingly by the threshold. You sigh. It's not going to clean itself. You start with your socks, because honestly, they're the loudest smelling offenders. You fill a copper basin with cold water and drop in a few shavings of homemade olive oil soap. The soap is soft and greenish, with a faint smell of laurel and last week's olives. You remember watching your aunt press these bars in wooden molds, her sleeves rolled to her elbows, eyes narrowed in judgment if you dared suggest using store-bought. You begin to scrub. The socks squish and resist. You turn them inside out like tiny, rebellious pastries. There's something deeply satisfying about this part, watching grime dissolve into foam, the way your knuckles go pink and clean. A soft breeze passes through, and the towels above you flutter like gossiping birds. Across the courtyard, a man is wringing out a long tunic with the precision of a surgeon. You give him a lazy nod. He nods back. No words, just mutual soap-based solidarity. Suddenly, you hear it. A splat. The goat, who has apparently declared himself your laundry supervisor, knocks over a bucket of rinse water with his face. You give him a look. He stares blankly, chewing something that may or may not have once been a sock. Laundry in the Ottoman Empire, it turns out, includes a fair bit of livestock diplomacy. You rinse the socks and move on to your linen trousers. The water is already clouded with dust and soap, but you make do. There's no rush. In fact, rushing would be suspicious. The empire is sprawling, its bureaucracy massive, but when it comes to laundry, time is gentle. There are no timers or detergent ads, just you, your hands, and the measured slosh of the basin. A friend wanders into the courtyard, balancing a bundle of tangled undershirts on her hip. Don't forget the sleeves, she says, in a tone suggesting sleeves are the seat of all evil. She's not wrong. Ottoman sleeves, especially among the wealthier classes, tend to be long, flared, and mysteriously stain-attracting. You give yours an extra squeeze for good measure. Somewhere beyond the courtyard walls, you hear the faint sound of a darbuka drum. A merchant setting up for the morning bazaar, maybe, or someone's child getting an early start on annoying the neighbors. Either way, it reminds you, soon you'll need to refill your water. The courtyard basin won't last all day, and the public fountains are only a few winding streets away. But for now, you pause. Wipe your hands on your sash, stretch your back, and look up at the drying lines again. There's something deeply human about this moment, sharing the sun, the silence, and the slow rhythm of clean. You've only washed a handful of items, but already you feel oddly productive. As one 19th century traveler to the Ottoman lands once noted with confusion, the people wash their linens with a kind of reverence, as if cleansing sins from the fabric. He was being dramatic, but there's a sliver of truth there. You're not just removing dirt, you're participating in a kind of soft, sudsy ceremony. And when the breeze turns just right, carrying the scent of lavender soap and stone-dried towels, you realize, this is the good stuff. No rush, no bleach. Just the quiet joy of starting fresh, one soapy swirl at a time. You gather the socks and linens you've already scrubbed, slinging the damp bundle over your shoulder. They're heavier than they look, like carrying around a particularly clammy cat. The goat watches you leave the courtyard, chewing with vague menace. You step past him carefully. The winding streets of your neighborhood are already stirring. The sun is low but golden, brushing the domes and rooftops in a buttery light. Children dart between homes, chasing each other with lengths of frayed rope. A woman 3 doors down is wringing out bed sheets from a second-story window, her elbows working like bellows. The rhythm of the city is picking up, but only gently. This is a society suspicious of haste. You pass under an archway tiled in blue and gold, the stones cool beneath your bare feet. Ahead lies your destination, the neighborhood's sebile or public fountain, framed by slender columns and shaded by a mulberry tree. The water trickles constantly, cool and clear, drawn from one of the many aqueducts that lace the Ottoman cities like secret veins. You take your place in line behind an elderly man with a mustache like a broom and a young girl balancing a pitcher on her head. They both nod a slow, "Good morning." No one speaks much. Morning water is a sacred thing. As you wait your turn, your eye catches the basin's stonework, carved calligraphy spelling out a Waqf inscription, dedicating this fountain to the public good in the name of a long-dead pasha. Historians still argue whether these water foundations were more religious duty or PR stunts for wealthy elites. Either way, you're grateful. It's free, it's abundant, and the water tastes like patience. Your copper jug fills with a bubbling glug-glug. You crouch to rinse your hands, letting the coolness rush over your wrists. There's something meditative about it. The Ottoman Empire may be a swirl of politics, trade routes, and shifting alliances, but here at the fountain, it's just you, gravity, and a very clean jug. Beside you, the elderly man fills a cloth bag with water, not for drinking, but for wetting his turban cloth, he explains with a chuckle. Keeps the brain from overheating, he says. He may be joking. You can't quite tell. Back in the day, water wasn't piped into every home, but it didn't matter. Sebiles and cisterns kept the cities humming. Water carriers, or saka, were also a common sight. Tough, wiry men hauling great leather flasks on their backs, dripping steadily as they moved between courtyards and markets. Some were private hires, Others worked for religious endowments, and all of them had calves of iron. You remember the one who visits your neighborhood. He has a tendency to whistle off key and insists his water is the most refreshing in the empire. You're pretty sure it's all the same water, but he has a good pitch. Back home, you pour the fresh water into your washing basin, watching the steam rise as the sun hits it. The second round begins. This time, it's your tunics and undershirts. One has a mysterious green smear on the collar. You suspect pickled eggplant. You don't want to know. As you scrub, your friend from earlier drops by again. She brings her own laundry and a stack of local gossip. Her cousin's daughter has eloped with a Fez salesman. A cat gave birth in the mosque vestibule. Someone claims to have seen the Sultan's carriage go by with curtains open. He looked bored, she says, as if that's important. You nod solemnly. Laundry is better with commentary. She's brought a small pouch of crushed pomegranate peel, used as a natural cleanser and mild dye. She mixes it into her basin, the water turning faintly pink like rose sherbet. You're momentarily jealous. Your soap smells like goats. As you wring out a cotton shirt, you realize how much arm strength this requires. Forget modern gym memberships. Ottoman housework is a full-body affair. You kneel, twist, rinse, slap the shirt against the stone edge. The sound is oddly satisfying. Nearby, a boy wanders through the courtyard shouting about a lost slipper. He's no older than 7 and looks like he's recently lost a fight with a bush. You hand him a wooden clothespin as a peace offering. He accepts it gravely, as though receiving a medal. As the morning light intensifies, the courtyard becomes a study in motion, cloth flapping, buckets sloshing, pigeons darting for shade. It's not chaotic, but it's far from silent. There's a rhythm to it. You, your neighbors, the birds, even the water all moving in a slow communal dance. One woman walks by with a massive basket balanced on her head, her back straight as an arrow. She doesn't spill a drop. You try to imagine doing that with your posture. You'd be concussed in 5 steps. The clothesline is getting crowded. You find a new patch of rope, check the wind direction, and begin pegging things in place. The pegs are wooden, worn smooth by years of use. You hang the shirts upside down so the heaviest drips fall quickly. There's a whole etiquette to it. Never hang personal undergarments too close to the main walkway. Modesty matters, even in laundry. Above you, a pair of storks settle on the rooftop chimney. They look unimpressed with everything. You step back, admire your handiwork. The line sags under the weight of clean fabric, fluttering in the breeze like the sails of a very domestic ship. There's a real sense of peace in this. The sun, the soap, the subtle satisfaction of seeing something dirty become clean. Of course, you've still got a pile of towels left to tackle, but there's no hurry. In the Ottoman Empire, cleanliness isn't a sprint, it's a cycle. You'll get to it. Maybe after tea. You settle back onto a low stool, the kind that's been worn smooth by 1,000 laundry days. Your legs stretch out before you, damp and soapy, but in that agreeable way that suggests real progress. The courtyard is now fully awake. Dappled sunlight filters through grapevines coiled overhead, casting moving patterns across the stone floor like lazy shadow puppets. The towels are next. Thick, coarse things that absorb water like a grudge. You drag one into the basin and watch it swell, an unwieldy sponge of linen and attitude. You push it under, elbow deep in the suds, and begin scrubbing in long meditative strokes. Across from you, your friend is tackling a small mountain of children's clothes. She groans softly, like someone halfway through a heroic saga. You know, she says, they say the palace laundresses only work 1 day a week. You pause. 1 day? She nods. All the Sultan's laundry. One day. You raise an eyebrow. Historians still argue whether the harem's internal rhythms were truly as organized as court records claim, but what's clear is that the palace laundry system operated on a rotating schedule. Vast teams of women, many enslaved, many highly skilled, would coordinate entire laundry days around the moon cycle, fasting periods, and state visits. It was less laundry day, more military campaign. The palace had entire chambers devoted to washing, rinsing, and ironing, special bronze cauldrons for boiling garments, large marble slabs for pounding out stains with round heated mallets called tokmak, and, of course, separate drying galleries with enormous ventilation windows to prevent mildew from dampening royal dignity. Your courtyard's a bit less formal. You use a flat stone warmed by the sun to help press water from the towels, a technique your grandmother swears by. It's not palace technology, but it works. One towel is embroidered with faded red stitching, your initials, crooked and charming. You remember trying to embroider it yourself as a child, puncturing your thumb at least 4 times and bleeding on the thread. It adds character, someone had said. Probably a lie. But comforting, all the same. You switch arms, adjusting your posture. The towel seems to fight back now, waterlogged and belligerent. You beat it against the edge of the basin a few times for good measure. Satisfying. Therapeutic even. A cat appears on the far ledge, watching you with great disdain. She tiptoes around the drying shirts like she's judging your folding skills in advance. In the empire's larger towns, professional laundresses were common, especially in affluent households. These women weren't just washers, they were fabric doctors, stain specialists, soap alchemists. You've heard stories of traveling washerwomen who knew how to coax color back into old silks or treat linen so delicately it emerged from boiling water softer than when it went in. There's even a rumor that one laundress saved an entire marriage by removing a suspicious lipstick mark from a pasha's inner collar. The pasha never asked questions again. Wise man. In your neighborhood, most people still prefer to do laundry at home or as part of a weekly courtyard gathering. It's more than labor. It's bonding, gossip, matchmaking, low stakes arguing about soap formulas. Your friend swears by crushed chickpeas and ashes. You're an olive oil loyalist. Another neighbor once tried something involving mashed quince, and her entire wardrobe smelled like jam for weeks. As you rinse the towel, the suds slide down into the drain at the courtyard's edge. The Ottomans were clever about drainage systems. Many urban homes had internal gutters and sloped floors to guide water away efficiently. It makes sense when you're doing half your housework ankle-deep in bubbles. You notice a flock of doves circle above, then land on a nearby roof to preen. You suspect they're eyeing the clean laundry for a tactical strike. You consider draping a decoy rag elsewhere to lure them away. War is strategy. Behind you, someone starts heating water over a brazier. The scent of copper and smoke fills the air. Boiling was a key method for sterilizing linens, especially anything used in hospitals or public baths. In fact, the Ottoman medical system had extensive protocols for linen cleanliness. Blankets, bandages, even surgeons' aprons were all subject to rigorous washing schedules. Historians debate whether this obsession with cleanliness came from Islamic purity laws or just sheer practicality, but either way, it meant that even centuries ago, hygiene was serious business. Ottoman doctors were known to inspect laundry conditions before they'd consider taking a job. You wring out the towel and finally drape it across the line. It sags like a tired elephant, but it's clean, and that's what matters. You pause to admire your progress. Lines of shirts, socks, and towels stretch across the courtyard like laundry flags in some peaceful domestic parade. There's a certain joy in the mundane, an almost sacred rhythm to washing, wringing, hanging. You're part of an unbroken chain, from palace laundresses with silk gloves to wrinkled grandmothers with sunburned arms, all of you tied together by the task of scrubbing out the day's stains. You reach for the next towel. It smells faintly of time, somehow. No idea how that happened. You decide not to question it. Above, the sun is climbing, and the laundry flutters like banners in a very soft, fabric-based rebellion. You feel good, steady, at ease. You're halfway through your pile, and if you play your cards right, you might even have time for a nap in the shade before the midday call to prayer. The goat wanders back into view. You both ignore each other, like old colleagues. He sniffs at your towel but moves on, unimpressed. You feel a certain quiet pride in that. The sun climbs higher, casting sharper shadows now, but you're not hurrying. Nobody is. The Ottomans knew how to respect a slow burn, of incense, of tea, of daylight. You shift your weight on the stool, stretch your arms behind your back with a satisfying pop, and assess the dwindling towel pile. You're getting somewhere. Not quite triumphant yet, but definitely past despair. A breeze picks up, fluttering the hanging linens like lazy sails. You wonder, briefly, what would happen if someone invented towel kites? Then you remember you're sleep-deprived and elbow-deep in soap water. Probably not your moment of invention. As you rinse and twist the next towel, a familiar smell wafts through the air, simmering lentils and fried onions. Someone starting the midday meal early. Your stomach growls. This is dangerous territory. Hungry laundry is less precise. You'll have to pace yourself. The Ottoman rhythm of daily life revolves around meals, prayer, tea, and yes, laundry. But never all at once. Laundry has its own sacred slot, usually morning, often stretching into early afternoon. You never do laundry after the sun sets. That's when the ghosts of housework past come out. Or maybe just the mosquitoes. Across the courtyard, a neighbor hums softly while slapping sheets against a stone slab. The beat is surprisingly catchy. You find yourself scrubbing in time, like some kind of Ottoman percussionist. She sees you and grins. "You missed a corner," she says, pointing with her elbow. You examine the towel. She's right. There's a faint reddish streak that looks suspiciously like tomato paste. You sigh. A memory surfaces. Last week's dolma mishap. You'd tried to serve it with extra flair and dropped half of it onto your lap. The towel, ever loyal, had taken the blow. The trick, you've learned, is to treat stains like gossip. Get to them early and scrub gently. Too aggressive, and they just dig in their heels. You reach for your soap, homemade, pale green, and scented faintly with laurel. It's stored in a chipped ceramic bowl you inherited from an aunt who swore it could cure both wine stains and broken hearts. Jury's still out on the latter. Soap making itself is a minor art form in the Ottoman world. While most people use simple olive oil-based bars, wealthier households might boast imported French soaps or artisanal blends from Aleppo or Bursa. Some even had scents crafted to match the seasons: orange blossom in spring, cinnamon in winter. You've smelled those once, and they were dangerously seductive, far too fancy for your socks. You scrub in circles, humming along now to the laundry rhythm of the courtyard. Somewhere nearby, water sloshes into a basin, and someone scolds a child in a tone that suggests spilled water, broken bowls, or both. The domestic symphony continues. Historians still argue whether laundry in Ottoman society was considered a women's-only domain, or whether the lines blurred more than we think. While most depictions center on women at the wash basin, there are records of men doing laundry too, especially bachelors, dervishes, and soldiers in garrisons. The empire, vast and varied, didn't always play by a single rulebook. Take the Janissaries, for example, elite infantry raised from childhood to serve the state. Their laundry practices were notoriously strict. Each man was expected to keep his garments spotless, with regular inspections and mandatory wash days. Dirty linens were seen not just as unhygienic, but dishonorable. One poorly washed tunic could get you demoted, or at least publicly mocked. You imagine a row of grim-faced janissaries scrubbing underpants with military precision. The thought is both intimidating and hilarious. You turn back to your tomato-stained towel, now nearly spotless. Success. You wring it out, watching the water stream into the drain with a little gurgle of approval. Another victory. Small, but deeply satisfying. Nearby, someone pours tea into a cup so tiny it might qualify as ornamental. The aroma of mint and sugar drifts towards you. Ottoman laundry breaks were sacred, and tea was non-negotiable. A well-timed cup could mean the difference between productivity and a full existential crisis over a mystery stain. You decide to take a break yourself. You dry your hands on a half-dry scarf, pour yourself a little tea from the shared pot near the brazier, and sip carefully. It's hot enough to cauterize regret, but soothing. Sweet, earthy, and deeply unfair to all other beverages. A neighbor joins you with her own cup, sitting cross-legged on a cushion she's dragged over from the shade. She nods at your mostly emptied laundry pile. You've earned that. Don't jinx it, you reply, eyeing the last stubborn towel still lurking by the basin. She chuckles and offers you a fig. You accept. The fruit is soft and sticky, and it tastes like late summer and mild rebellion. You both sit quietly for a while, listening to the breeze and the faint echo of a street vendor shouting about cucumbers. It's in moments like this that you realize laundry in the Ottoman Empire isn't just a chore. It's a ritual, a performance, a chance to move slowly through the day, to work with your hands while letting your mind drift, to sweat, chat, sip tea, and somehow end up with clean sheets at the end of it all. As you finish your tea, the call to prayer rises gently over the rooftops. You pause, letting it wash over you. It signals a shift in the day, a slowing down. But you've got just enough time to finish the last towel before the sun starts leaning west. You return to your stool, dip the final towel, and begin the familiar rhythm once more. You return to the basin with a quiet determination. One towel left. A humble finale to your morning's performance. You dip it slowly, ceremoniously, like a sultan christening a new ship. The water embraces the fabric with a soft glug, and you press it down until your wrists disappear beneath the suds. It's a light-colored towel with a delicate border, clearly one of your special occasion towels, the kind you only use for honored guests or when you feel like pretending your life is a little more refined than it really is. It has survived picnics, minor kitchen fires, and one very ill-advised attempt at dyeing your hair with walnut husks. You smile, remembering that particular disaster. For 3 weeks, you looked like you'd lost a fight with a tree. But the towel never judged you. It just absorbed the evidence and carried on. You start scrubbing, slowly and with purpose. The basin water is cooling now, its warmth fading like the morning. The courtyard has quieted a bit. Fewer sloshing sounds, more gentle folding. Some neighbors are already bringing their laundry inside to hang from wooden pegs or rooftop lines, where the breeze has more room to work its magic. You, though, are still savoring the process. Rushing laundry is like skipping through a lullaby, pointless and vaguely disrespectful. As you wring the towel gently, you think about public washhouses. While not as common as in some European cities, Ottoman towns did maintain public fountains and communal laundry spaces, especially in neighborhoods with limited access to water. These weren't always glamorous, but they were essential and often had a unique energy of their own. There's a famous story, half fact, half folklore, of a laundress in Istanbul who accidentally washed a sultan's handkerchief in the same tub as her baby's cloth diapers. She was terrified she'd be executed for the insult. Instead, the sultan supposedly laughed and said, "At least it came back cleaner than it left." Historians still argue whether he said it or whether he even noticed at all, but the story lives on in laundry lore. With one final squeeze, you wring the towel until it's nearly dry. You stand, stretch your arms overhead, and drape the towel across the highest rung of the drying rack. It flutters in the wind like a tiny, damp flag of triumph. You take a moment to admire your handiwork. The courtyard has transformed. Earlier a battlefield of soaked fabric, now a serene grove of drifting linens. Each towel, each shirt, each humble sock sways gently in the breeze like it's exhaling after a long morning. Your hands are wrinkled, your back slightly sore, but your mood? Unreasonably good. There's something meditative about finishing a task the old way. No machines, no timers, just soap, water, and persistence. You move toward the shade and sit beside your earlier companion, who's now deep into peeling cucumbers for lunch. She offers you a slice, cool and crisp. You accept without hesitation. Somewhere nearby, a child giggles. A chicken makes a sound that might be disapproval or just indigestion. A splash echoes from another courtyard, followed by cheerful cursing. Life goes on, one drop at a time. You remember something your great-aunt once said, "A household's character is in its laundry line. You can lie about your tablecloth, but your socks tell the truth." She wasn't wrong. The socks currently hanging in front of you, faded, mismatched, one with a suspicious tomato stain, speak volumes. But you're okay with that. Honesty is breathable. As the breeze thickens with the smell of grilled eggplant, you realize you're hungry. Laundry may feed the soul, but your stomach disagrees. Still, you linger a bit longer in the courtyard. The towels deserve a victory lap. Some cultures have grand rituals for renewal, fireworks, feasts, sweeping chants. In the Ottoman Empire, sometimes the ritual was soap bubbles and sunshine, a fresh towel, a clean shirt, a basin emptied of the week's sweat, quiet victories. You glance up. The cat has returned, now attempting to climb the drying rack. You watch in slow-motion horror as it leaps and misses, crashing into a small stool with theatrical flair before slinking off with its dignity shattered. You try not to laugh. You fail. And just like that, the morning is done. You've washed, rinsed, wrung, and hung. Your arms ache, your face is sun-kissed, and your heart feels light. You gather your tools, the soap bowl, the empty basin, a handful of clothespins, and stack them neatly in the corner. Order restored. You even sweep a few stray puddles toward the courtyard drain, watching the last suds disappear like soft applause. There's one final task. The ritual of checking each towel for mischief, folding corners that flap too wildly, recentering socks that threaten to slip off the line, and gently patting the edges of your favorite scarf just to let it know it's loved. With a deep breath, you step back and take it all in. You've done what generations have done before you. You've kept chaos at bay with rhythm, effort, and bubbles. And tomorrow? There might be more stains, more tomato sauce, more mysterious footprints across freshly laundered linens. But today, you've won. Now that your basin is empty and the last towel is dancing on the line, the day opens up before you like a warm flatbread, steaming slightly at the edges. Laundry, in this corner of the Ottoman Empire, doesn't just mark the end of a chore, it signals the beginning of a slower rhythm. You've earned your way into the peaceful portion of the day. You stretch again, more for the principle than any real ache, and wander toward the corner of the courtyard where a patch of thyme and mint is growing rebelliously through the cracks. You pluck a leaf, rub it between your fingers, and inhale. It smells green, like the beginning of a soup or the end of a good day. It's just about lunchtime, and you've got choices. There's the neighbor who sometimes passes over a bowl of lentil soup if you time your compliment just right. There's your own stash of olives and bread tucked away. Or you could gamble on the street vendor who wanders past every third day with pickled turnips and melon slices. This time, he shouts to the tools of your trade. Is less sour than my mother-in-law and basin, but the things you use afterward. The drying process is an art all its own, and in the Ottoman world it came with regional flair. In humid coastal cities, people often dried laundry on flat rooftops, where sea breezes turned linens into flags of domestic pride. Inland, households favored open courtyards or covered verandas. Wealthier homes sometimes had whole drying rooms with latticed windows to let in the breeze while keeping out nosy neighbors and over-enthusiastic pigeons. And yes, pigeons were a problem. Ottoman poets may have written odes to their soft cooing, but they didn't have to clean feathers out of freshly laundered bloomers. Your own drying setup is humble but effective. A wooden rack, a handful of rust-free nails driven into the courtyard walls, and a braided line made of twisted cotton strong enough to hold a week's worth of towels, but just delicate enough to snap at the worst possible moment. You've reinforced it with a spare scarf after last month's laundry landslide incident. Lesson learned. You wander the line now like a curator in a very domestic museum. Each item tells a story, some of culinary accidents, others of long walks, spilled tea, and spontaneous naps. One shirt has a tear in the sleeve, patched with a bit of embroidered ribbon from an old skirt. You did that on a whim, and now can't decide whether it's fashion-forward or just deeply confusing. Historians still debate the social signals carried by Ottoman laundry. Some claim laundry lines were semi-coded systems. A lacy undershirt might hint at an engagement. Children's clothes marked a new arrival. Stark white linens, a recent funeral. Others say that's overreading, that laundry was laundry and nobody read too much into it unless it started blocking their light. Still, there's a kind of intimacy to the clothesline, a softness, a window into someone's rhythms. You've watched neighbors fall in love, fall apart, and fall asleep, all between wash cycles. As you adjust a drying sock, the wind shifts, and a new scent arrives. Wood smoke and roasted eggplant. Someone's grilling. Your stomach makes a declaration. You glance down at your hands, still slightly puckered, smelling faintly of laurel and sunshine. You wipe them on your apron and head inside. Lunch, when you finally get to it, is simple. A wedge of bread, some cucumber slices, a few crumbles of cheese, and olives that bite back just enough to keep things interesting. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, as the breeze threads through the open window, tugging gently at the corner of a curtain. You sip a bit of cooled tea, now minty and mellow, and let your thoughts wander to a peculiar story you heard once. A janissary officer who refused to let anyone else wash his linens, claiming only he knew the correct folding angle to preserve the dignity of his undergarments. His quarters were lined with perfectly folded trousers, apparently, and he once demoted a soldier for wrinkling a bedsheet. Historians still argue whether he was just obsessively neat or maybe just very, very lonely. You stretch out on a cushion after your meal, arms tucked behind your head, and listen to the distant chatter of neighbors, the fluttering of fabric, and the occasional clink of ceramic bowls being stacked or unstacked. In the Ottoman world, the post-laundry lull is sacred. It's not a nap exactly, but it's not work either. It's a space between tasks, a pause to recalibrate. You're not expected to leap up and scrub the floor or write poetry. You're expected to exist, to absorb, maybe shell peas. You doze a little, not fully asleep, but drifting. A fly buzzes past your ear, too lazy to land. The towel rack creaks as the wind changes again. A pigeon flaps by dramatically, as if offended by something invisible. Later, you'll gather the towels, fold them with exaggerated care, stack them like bricks of soft accomplishment. But for now, you close your eyes, let the tea settle, and imagine what it must have been like to do all this centuries ago, without indoor plumbing, without detergent commercials, without timers or fabric softeners. And you realize it was probably a lot like this. The afternoon sun filters through the lattice windows, casting delicate patterns that dance across the stone floor. You wake from your light rest just as the courtyard begins to hum with renewed energy, children returning from lessons, merchants unloading goods, the occasional clatter of horse hooves on cobblestones. Cotton, for instance, was prized for its softness and breathability, perfect for the hot summers. Linen, with its crisp texture, often made up the garments of wealthier citizens who could afford the labor-intensive production. Wool kept the colder regions warm, especially in the mountainous east. But here's the quirky bit. You might be surprised to learn that some Ottoman elite preferred silk, even for their undergarments. It was seen as a sign of luxury and status, but historians still argue whether silk's delicate nature actually made it practical for daily wear, or if it was purely ornamental, something to be admired but not truly worn. As you wander toward the courtyard fountain, you hear the distant call of a water seller, his voice rhythmic and melodic, almost like a song. Water was, of course, central to daily life, and especially to laundry. The availability and quality of water often dictated how often people washed, where they washed, and even what kinds of soap they used. Speaking of soap, Ottoman soap making was an art form in itself. The famous Aleppo soap, a fragrant blend of olive oil and laurel oil, was highly sought after, not only within the empire, but across Europe. You recall stories of traders packing these soaps in crates bound for Venice and Marseille, where they became luxury items. You find yourself near a small garden patch where a few herbs grow lazily between cracks in the stone. The scent of rosemary and lavender fills the air, not just pleasant smells, but practical additions to the laundry process. Herbs were often added to washing water or rubbed directly onto clothes to freshen them and keep away pests. Imagine that. No fabric softeners or dryer sheets, just Mother Nature and a little know-how. You pause by a stone bench and settle down, listening to the gentle splash of the fountain. The coolness of the marble soothes your skin, and you realize that this small oasis is not just for show. Courtyards like this were carefully designed to provide relief from the heat and to serve as communal gathering places, often doubling as spots for laundry, socializing, and quiet reflection. Nearby, a group of women chat quietly as they tend to their own laundry. Their voices rise and fall like a lullaby, occasionally punctuated by a soft laugh or the rhythmic slap of wet cloth against stone. You imagine that in these moments, stories were shared, secrets exchanged, and bonds strengthened over suds and sun. You also think about the lesser-known laundry practices across the diverse Ottoman territories. For instance, in Anatolia, some rural communities use volcanic ash as a natural cleaning agent, while in coastal towns, seawater was sometimes preferred, despite its saltiness, for its ability to brighten white fabrics. Historians still argue whether these methods were born out of necessity or tradition, but one thing's clear. People always found clever ways to care for their clothes, balancing practicality and ritual. You catch a whiff of something baking in a nearby oven, a subtle hint of cardamom and honey, and your stomach grumbles in protest. But you resist, knowing that the afternoon's slow pace is about savoring moments, not rushing through them. You lean back, letting the soft murmur of the courtyard wrap around you like a warm shawl. The laundry is drying, the day is unfolding, and for now, all is as it should be. The sun shifts lazily toward late afternoon, casting a golden haze over the courtyard. You rise from the stone bench with a leisurely sigh, feeling the subtle tension in your shoulders ease as you prepare to gather your dried laundry. The task might seem mundane, but it carries the rhythm of centuries, one woven into the very fabric of daily life in the Ottoman world. You approach the drying rack, watching the towels and shirts ripple gently in the breeze. They're crisp now, sun-warmed, and carrying that faint scent of thyme and smoke from the afternoon fires. Your hands reach out instinctively, fingers tracing familiar textures. There's a certain comfort in these worn fibers, each a patchwork of stories, mistakes, and triumphs. You fold the linens carefully, methodically. The motions are slow, almost meditative. Folding cloth wasn't just about neatness. It was an art, a practice passed down through generations, with regional flourishes. For example, in Istanbul, housewives often folded towels into intricate shapes before storing them, almost like origami, as a quiet expression of pride in their household. You chuckle quietly to yourself, recalling a local tale about a laundry maid who accidentally folded a man's shirt into a bird shape. He wore it to a council meeting by mistake, and, oddly, the gesture was taken as a sign of creativity and goodwill. Historians still debate whether this was a genuine event or an exaggerated moral tale to encourage tidiness. As you stack the folded clothes, you consider the storage of laundry in Ottoman homes. Unlike modern closets, clothes were often kept in cedar chests or wooden boxes, their scents infused with lavender sachets or crushed rose petals. This fragrant storage was both practical, deterring moths, and symbolic, preserving the dignity of garments. As twilight between wears, you watch the stars begin to emerge, pinpricks of light winking awake above the tiled roofs. The rhythm of the day winds down, but the memory of the laundry lingers, a quiet testament to patience, care, and the art of simply being. You lean back, eyes closing briefly, as the soft night sounds lull you toward rest. Night settles fully now, and the courtyard grows cool, wrapped in a gentle hush. You feel the weight of the day's tasks settle into a comfortable rhythm in your bones. The scent of dried herbs still lingers faintly, a soft reminder of the care you put into every fold and rinse. You find yourself reflecting on the ceremonial side of laundry in Ottoman culture, a dimension less about cleanliness and more about status, identity, and even spirituality. Clothes were more than mere fabric. They were symbols worn on the body, and sometimes markers of social rank. Consider the Sultan's robes, for instance. These were crafted from the finest silks, embroidered with gold thread and precious stones. Wearing such garments was both an honor and a responsibility, a way to communicate power without uttering a word. You think about the intricate process behind these garments' maintenance. Specialized servants, called cucumbers or kamashurju, were assigned to care for royal clothes. These attendants used particular soaps and techniques, often kept secret within palace walls. Historians still argue whether these practices influenced broader Ottoman laundry customs or remained exclusive to the elite. But the everyday citizen's relationship with laundry was more pragmatic. You recall stories of farmers in Anatolia who waited for the full moon to wash their clothes, believing that moonlight had purifying powers. This folk wisdom blended spiritual beliefs with practical timing as the cooler nights slowed drying and helped preserve fabric. Laundry also intersected with gender roles. Women generally managed household washing, a physically demanding job that required strength and patience. Men, meanwhile, might handle laundering outer garments or religious robes, tasks linked to ceremonial duties. You pause to imagine the soft slap of wet clothes hitting stone basins, the steam rising in delicate tendrils, and the low murmur of conversation mixing with the occasional splash of water. The act of washing was a shared experience, weaving together community and routine. Interestingly, some Ottoman poets compared washing clothes to cleansing the soul, each rinse a metaphor for washing away impurities, not just from fabric but from the self. It's a beautiful image, your own slow, deliberate cleaning as a path toward renewal. As you fold the last shirt of the day, you notice a faint shimmer on the fabric, the tiny remnants of natural soap bubbles catching the dim light. A humble, almost invisible detail, but it feels like a quiet celebration of the day's efforts. The night deepens, and you breathe out slowly, allowing the gentle pace of history and daily life to lull your mind. The courtyard is now bathed in the soft silver of moonlight, shadows stretching long and quiet. You sit back on the cool stone, the day's work behind you, and a gentle stillness settling over the space. It's the perfect time to think about the tools that made Ottoman laundry possible, the humble implements that quietly shaped centuries of washing rituals. Your mind wanders to the wooden washboards and stone basins that were common in Ottoman homes. The washboards, often carved with simple patterns, weren't just practical, they were sometimes cherished family heirlooms. You imagine the rhythmic scrubbing, hands moving steadily back and forth, muscles engaged but not strained, a slow dance between fabric and water. But there's a curious little detail. In some regions, particularly along the empire's Balkan edges, laundry workers would add crushed snail shells to the washing water. This was believed to soften tough stains and add a slight abrasive quality to the wash. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread practice or a localized folk remedy, but the thought of snail shells floating in bubbling water certainly adds an unexpected twist to your mental image. You also consider the types of soap used. Early Ottoman soap making was influenced by Byzantine and Arab traditions, incorporating olive oil and soda ash. Over time, the craft evolved, with cities like Aleppo becoming famous for producing the hard, fragrant bars that were prized across continents. The scent of soap was, in fact, part of the whole laundry experience. Soap makers carefully balanced ingredients not only for cleaning power but for fragrance. Some soaps were scented with rosewater or herbs like rosemary and thyme, adding a delicate perfume to fabrics and skin alike. You recall a story about a traveling merchant who once carried a secret recipe for soap infused with saffron, an expensive and exotic spice. The soap was said to impart a subtle golden hue to garments, making them shimmer in sunlight. Whether true or apocryphal, this tale reflects how laundry intersected with luxury and status. As you lean forward, fingers tracing the rough surface of a nearby basin, you think about water's importance. Clean water wasn't always easy to come by, especially in crowded cities. Many households relied on cisterns and aqueducts, marvels of engineering that sustained daily life. The quality of water influenced washing habits, with some preferring to use rainwater, which was softer and less likely to leave mineral deposits on clothes. Others favored river water, despite its impurities, because it was plentiful. Laundry also intersected with health beliefs. The Ottoman medical tradition emphasized cleanliness as a defense against disease, and washing clothes was part of maintaining personal hygiene. Yet historians still debate how consistently these ideals were practiced across different social classes and regions. You close your eyes briefly, the sounds of night drifting around you, the rustle of leaves, a distant owl's call, the faint murmur of a late traveler on a nearby road. These small moments, these tiny details of tools, soap, and water, combine to create the gentle rhythm of life you've been following all day. The first hints of dawn are beginning to touch the sky with pale pinks and soft blues, but the world feels wrapped in a velvety quiet. You're still seated in the courtyard, letting the cool night air mingle with the warm memories of the day's rituals. Your thoughts drift toward the seasonal rhythms that shaped laundry schedules in the Ottoman Empire, how the turning of the year subtly dictated what got washed, when, and how. Winter, was a time when laundry was often scaled back. Cold weather and scarce sunlight made drying a challenge, and people were more forgiving of worn or less fresh clothes. You picture a family huddled around a fireplace, wrapped in thick fabrics that might not have been washed for weeks, trading stories to pass the long evenings. Come spring, the air filled with the scent of blossoming jasmine and wild herbs, laundry season kicked into high gear. This was the time for the büyük yıkama, or big washing, a thorough cleaning of all household textiles, from clothing to bedding to curtains. It was almost like a communal festival of renewal. You imagine the neighborhood abuzz with activity as people brought their piles of laundry to the public wash houses or organized group washing days along rivers. The air would be thick with steam, soap bubbles, and laughter, the sounds of clothes slapping against stones mixing with lively chatter. Historians still argue whether these group washings were primarily social events or pragmatic solutions to limited water access. Likely, they were a bit of both, a way to blend necessity with community. In rural areas, the timing of laundry might be more closely tied to agricultural cycles. After the busy planting or harvest seasons, there was often time to focus on household chores, including washing and mending clothes. You also recall a quaint folk belief from Anatolia. Washing clothes on certain days of the week could influence luck or health. Thursdays were sometimes avoided for laundry, lest you invite bad fortune. Whether these beliefs had a practical origin or were simply superstitions passed down is still debated. The sensory detail of this seasonal cycle sticks with you. The cool rush of spring water, the crispness of freshly laundered sheets drying on a breeze scented with wildflowers, the warm glow of the sun on damp fabric. You smile softly, thinking how this slow, deliberate cycle mirrors the natural world itself, periods of rest and activity, cleanliness and comfort, work and play. And just as the seasons shift, so too does your mind begin to drift toward rest. The morning light filters through the latticework, casting delicate patterns on the stone floor as you stretch and prepare for a new day. But before you dive into the hustle of chores, your thoughts return to an often overlooked aspect of Ottoman laundry culture: the care and repair of garments. Clothes in the Ottoman era were precious, and mending was an essential skill. You can almost see the quiet scenes of women threading needles by candlelight, weaving delicate stitches into worn fabric. These menders weren't just patching holes. They were preserving memories, holding on to the stories embedded in every seam. You think of the skilled artisans called terziler, who specialized in tailoring and repair. Their work was part craft, part art. Some even embroidered tiny motifs over repairs to disguise tears, turning flaws into decorative statements. Repairing clothing was also practical. Fabric was costly, and textiles took time to produce. You recall that cotton and silk were prized materials, often imported along the famous silk routes that passed through Ottoman lands. The care given to these fabrics reflected both economic realities and aesthetic values. Sometimes, clothing was recycled into new forms. Old garments might be cut and sewn into children's clothes, or transformed into household rags or cushion stuffing. This circular approach to fabric use shows an early form of sustainability, driven by necessity more than modern green ideals. You chuckle softly, imagining a small child running around in a patched-up jacket adorned with bright embroidery, a walking tapestry of family history and love. The act of mending also carried symbolic meaning. Some believed that repairing clothes could mend misfortune or restore harmony, weaving threads of hope into daily life. As you fold a sleeve carefully, you feel connected to these quiet moments of care, imagining the hands that came before yours. Laundry, washing, drying, it's a full cycle, but so is repair and renewal. You take a breath and glance out to the garden where jasmine blooms, the scent faint but persistent, like a whispered secret from the past. Life, like fabric, wears and repairs itself, stitch by stitch, day by day. The sun climbs higher now, warming the courtyard as you settle into a slow rhythm of reflection. You think about how the everyday act of laundry intersected with broader cultural and religious practices in the Ottoman Empire. Washing was not just practical, it was infused with symbolism and ritual. In Islamic tradition, cleanliness holds a special place, linked closely to spiritual purity. You can picture the careful washing before prayer, ablutions performed with deliberate care, hands rinsed, and faces washed as a physical preparation for connection with the divine. This emphasis on cleanliness extended to clothing. Wearing clean garments for prayer and communal gatherings was a sign of respect, both for oneself and for others. You imagine the quiet pride felt when donning freshly laundered robes for Friday prayers at the mosque, the fabric soft and fragrant. But there were also curious customs around laundry connected to fate and fortune. For example, some believed that washing a garment before a significant event could wash away bad luck, while others thought wearing clothes that had been freshly cleaned by a loved one brought blessings. Historians still argue about how widespread and deeply held these beliefs were, whether they were everyday superstitions or more localized traditions passed through certain communities. You also consider the role of festivals and special occasions. Before celebrations like Eid, households undertook major cleaning efforts, including thorough laundering of clothes and textiles. The preparation was both physical and spiritual, a way to cleanse the home and body in anticipation of renewal and joy. Laundry, then, was part of a larger cycle of life and faith, a gentle weaving of the mundane and the sacred. As you breathe in the faint scent of rose water still lingering in the air, you feel a comforting connection across time to those countless hands who took up the same task, imbuing it with meaning and care. The soft clatter of pots and distant calls from the market punctuate the morning, grounding you once more in the living city around you. And as the day unfolds, you settle deeper into the peaceful pulse of history's gentle wash. The afternoon sun begins to dip, casting a golden glow over the tiled roofs and narrow streets. You find yourself drawn to the quieter corners of Ottoman life, the spaces where laundry was not just a chore but a moment of calm, a subtle act of care woven into daily rhythms. In village homes, for example, washing often took place beside bubbling springs or shaded wells, where the sound of water offered a soothing backdrop. You imagine the gentle splash of hands working fabric, the occasional bird song, and the warm breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers. Laundry days were often slow and deliberate, allowing time for reflection, conversation, and small moments of humor. You might overhear light-hearted teasing between siblings or neighbors sharing stories as they work side by side. One quirky detail you find particularly endearing is that some Ottoman households used aromatic herbs like lavender or mint in their rinsing water, not only to scent the clothes, but also, they believed, to bring good dreams and restful sleep. Whether this was a widespread custom or a charming regional quirk is still up for debate among scholars. The act of laundry, in this way, became a gentle ritual of transition, washing away the day's dust, refreshing the body and mind, and preparing for the quiet of night. You think back to the rich tapestry of practices you've explored today, the varied tools, seasonal rhythms, social customs, and spiritual meanings all intertwined. It's a reminder that even the most mundane tasks carry a subtle magic when approached with care and attention. As twilight deepens and the first stars peek out, you imagine folding the last soft garment, the fabric cool and smooth in your hands, a final whisper of the day's journey. You breathe in slowly, the scent of herbs and clean linen mingling softly, and let yourself sink into the calm that comes from knowing these moments of simple care have echoed through centuries. And now, with the night fully upon you, it's time to rest. The morning light spills gently over the rooftops as you settle into the story of early Ottoman textile production, a foundation that quietly shaped the entire laundry experience. You can almost feel the textures beneath your fingertips: silk's delicate smoothness, cotton's soft breathability, and wool's hearty warmth. Each fabric demanded a different kind of care, influencing how and when it was washed. Silk, for instance, prized for its shimmering elegance, was treated with tender hands. You imagine how Ottoman launderers used cool water and mild soaps, knowing that harsh scrubbing could ruin the precious fibers. Cotton and wool, more robust but still requiring attention, involved a slightly different routine: longer soaking and gentle agitation to lift away the dirt without damaging the weave. The thriving textile industry was a crucial part of the empire's economy. You picture sprawling workshops in cities like Bursa and Edirne, where skilled artisans wove bolts of cloth destined for palace halls and humble homes alike. Historians still argue about the extent to which these textiles were produced domestically versus imported, but the consensus is clear. Ottoman fabric was renowned for its quality and variety. A quirky tidbit is that certain fabrics were even scented with rosewater or other fragrant oils during production, adding a subtle perfume to the clothes long before they reached the wash. Whether this was purely for luxury or had deeper cultural significance is still a matter of scholarly debate. The seasonal availability of raw materials also affected laundry cycles. For example, sheep shearing times influenced wool production, which in turn dictated when woolen garments were cleaned and stored. Thinking of all this, you realize laundry was never just about cleaning. It was a carefully orchestrated process intertwined with commerce, craft, and culture. As you run your hand over a fold of fabric, the story of Ottoman textiles comes alive, not just as material objects, but as living threads connecting people, places, and time. The warm sun filters through the lattice windows of a bustling hammam, the steamy air thick with the scent of rosewater and eucalyptus. You find yourself drawn into these communal bathhouses, which played a surprisingly central role in Ottoman laundry customs, not just for washing bodies, but also for caring for clothes and textiles. Imagine the rhythmic sound of water splashing, echoing softly against marble walls, as attendants gently scrub silk robes and cotton garments with natural soaps made from olive oil and ash. Hammams were more than just places to cleanse. They were social hubs where people gathered to share news, gossip, and moments of quiet relaxation. You picture rows of wooden washing basins and wooden paddles used to beat linens, helping remove stains and odors. These public baths offered an accessible and efficient solution for laundering, especially for those without private water sources or space at home. Historians still debate how widespread the practice of laundering clothes in hammams was. Some sources suggest it was common in cities, while rural dwellers relied more on rivers and wells. Regardless, the hammam's role in garment care is a testament to its importance in daily Ottoman life. A quirky detail: certain hammams had signature soaps scented with local herbs like lavender or myrtle, believed to bring good luck or health. You can almost smell the subtle fragrances mingling with steam, enhancing the sensory experience. The communal nature of laundry here fostered a sense of community, with neighbors exchanging tips on stain removal or fabric care. It's easy to imagine gentle teasing and shared laughter amid the warm, misty air. As you imagine this scene, the comforting blend of ritual, cleanliness, and connection feels almost like a balm for the soul, one that lingers softly, like the scent of soap on well-loved fabric. The dusty roads and winding markets of the Ottoman Empire were threaded with the scents of spices, flowers, and, surprisingly, soap. You find yourself tracing the routes of ancient trade, the famous Silk Road and Mediterranean corridors, that brought not only textiles but also the essential ingredients for soap making. Imagine merchants unloading sacks of olive oil from the Mediterranean coast, barrels of ash from local wood fires, and exotic scents like jasmine and ambergris from distant lands. These raw materials were the foundation of Ottoman soaps, crafted carefully in workshops tucked away behind bustling bazaars. Soap making was both a craft and a secret passed down through generations. You can almost see the skilled hands pouring mixtures into wooden molds, imprinting delicate patterns onto bars that would later lather up gentle cleansers for clothing and skin alike. Historians still argue about the precise origins of some soap recipes, whether they derived from Byzantine traditions or were influenced by Arab innovations. What's clear, though, is that Ottoman soaps were prized for their purity and fragrance, often enhanced with local herbs and flowers. One quirky detail: some soap makers added subtle hints of saffron or rose petals, turning laundry into a fragrant ritual. Whether these were mere luxuries or carried symbolic meaning related to health and happiness remains a topic of debate. You also consider how the availability of these ingredients varied seasonally and geographically, affecting laundry practices. For example, in coastal cities, olive oil soaps were common, while inland regions might rely on different bases. As you picture the vibrant market stalls and fragrant soap shops, you realize that laundry was connected to a vast network of trade and culture, a tapestry woven with scents, stories, and centuries of craftsmanship. This complex blend of commerce and care adds yet another layer of depth to the simple act of washing clothes, making it a small but rich thread in the empire's vast history. You settle in to think about the hands behind the laundry, the women, primarily, whose daily rhythms were shaped by washing clothes. Gender roles in the Ottoman household were nuanced, and laundry was one of those tasks often seen as quietly essential yet socially significant. Imagine a typical household. The women gather in shaded courtyards or by wells, their fingers deftly working soap into fabric, chatting softly as they handle this shared responsibility. Laundry was as much about care and connection as it was about cleanliness. You picture mothers teaching daughters the secrets of effective washing, how to treat different fabrics, the right times to launder, and even how to mend small tears. Historians still debate to what extent men participated in laundering, with some evidence suggesting men might have handled heavier textiles or communal laundry chores in certain regions. A charming tidbit is that in some communities, laundry was an occasion for storytelling and humor, a chance to pass down family lore or share gentle jokes, turning a tedious task into a moment of warmth and bonding. Laundry also intersected with social expectations. Clean clothing was a sign of respectability, especially for women, whose public appearance was closely observed. The pressure to maintain spotless garments influenced daily life quietly but firmly. You imagine the scent of herbs in rinsing water, the soft chatter among women, and the rhythm of washing as a kind of meditative pause in busy days. This routine was woven into the fabric of family and community, a slow, steady pulse of life. As you reflect on this, it's clear that laundry was never just about soap and water. It was about relationships, traditions, and the gentle passing of knowledge from one generation to the next. The year turns as you journey into the seasonal rhythms of Ottoman laundry festivals, those gentle celebrations that mark times of renewal, cleansing, and communal joy. Picture a village square or a city courtyard transformed by the soft bustle of these special laundry days. In spring, for example, families gathered to wash their heaviest fabrics, symbolically clearing away winter's dust and welcoming fresh beginnings. The air was filled with laughter and the scent of wild herbs used in rinsing water, sage, thyme, or rose petals, chosen not just for fragrance but for their supposed cleansing powers. Historians still argue about how uniform these festivals were across the empire, whether they followed religious calendars closely or adapted more to local customs. Either way, the celebrations provided a welcome pause from daily chores and an opportunity to strengthen social bonds. A quirky detail: in some regions, the laundry festival coincided with music and dance, turning the act of washing into a lively community event. Children played nearby, adults exchanged recipes for homemade soaps, and everyone shared stories passed down through generations. You imagine the sun warming damp linens hung on lines, fluttering like gentle flags proclaiming a fresh start. This ritualized cleansing extended beyond clothes. It was a renewal of spirit and community, a quiet rite of comfort in a sometimes unpredictable world. As twilight softens the scene, you feel the calm satisfaction that comes from shared effort and gentle tradition, knowing these customs lingered quietly in the background of Ottoman life, a tender thread in the vast tapestry of history. Laundry, once again, reveals itself as much more than a chore. It's a ritual of care, connection, and renewal. You begin by stepping back in time to the very origins of Ottoman laundry traditions, tracing the gentle footsteps of a custom that quietly shaped daily life across centuries. Imagine the early villages and bustling towns where the art of washing clothes was less a chore and more a ritual, a calming rhythm woven into the fabric of community life. Laundry wasn't just about cleanliness, it carried cultural significance, reflecting values of purity, respect, and social harmony. In these early days, you picture families gathered by streams or communal wells, sharing the soft splash of water as they cleaned garments that bore the marks of long days and hard work. Historians still debate how much these early Ottoman practices were influenced by the diverse peoples within the empire, from Turkic nomads to Byzantine city dwellers, and which customs blended seamlessly into a unique Ottoman tradition. What is clear is the continuity. Washing was a gentle act of renewal, both practical and symbolic. A curious detail is that many early laundry customs aligned with religious and seasonal cycles, subtly echoing larger rhythms of life. For example, certain days were deemed especially auspicious for washing, believed to bring blessings or cleanse more than just fabric. You imagine the soft murmur of water and voices mingling, the sunlight dappling through leaves onto carefully washed cloths laid out to dry. These humble beginnings laid the groundwork for the more elaborate laundry customs that blossomed later in Ottoman cities and courts. Through this lens, laundry emerges as a thread connecting everyday life with deeper currents of culture and belief, a soothing reminder that even the simplest acts can hold rich meaning. The air is thick with the fragrant steam of boiling herbs as you enter the intimate world of Ottoman soap making, where crafting cleaning solutions was as much an art as a necessity. Imagine clay pots simmering over low fires, filled with olive oil, ash, and aromatic additions like rose petals and lavender, transforming into gentle soaps that would later cradle delicate fabrics in their suds. Soap was a treasured commodity, made from locally sourced ingredients and enhanced by exotic scents brought through bustling trade routes. You can almost see skilled artisans pouring mixtures into wooden molds, imprinting bars with intricate patterns that marked both quality and pride in their craft. Historians still argue about the exact recipes passed down through generations, and whether certain fragrances were favored for their practical benefits, such as antibacterial properties, or simply for their soothing aromas. Regardless, the result was a soap that made laundering a sensory experience, turning a mundane task into a small luxury. A quirky detail: some soap makers experimented with adding crushed flowers or herbs to their bars, believing these additions brought good luck or protection to the wearer. Whether these were superstitions or early forms of aromatherapy is still up for debate. Imagine the rhythmic tapping as soap bars were cut and wrapped, then sold in colorful markets where their scents mingled with spices and fresh bread. Laundry in the Ottoman Empire was not just a chore, it was an encounter with craftsmanship and culture, scented and soft. As you breathe in the imagined aroma of lavender and olive, you begin to appreciate how these fragrant soaps transform the everyday into something quietly special, another layer in the rich tapestry of Ottoman life. The sun casts long shadows over the narrow streets and open courtyards of Ottoman cities, where laundry was much more than a solitary task. It was woven into the fabric of social life. Picture women gathered at wells or hammams, their laughter mingling with the gentle clinking of wooden washboards and the splash of water, turning the chore into a shared moment of community and connection. Laundry spots became informal meeting places, where neighbors exchanged news, recipes, and tips for treating stubborn stains or preserving delicate fabrics. You can almost hear the low hum of voices, the occasional joke, and the soft rustling of linen as it was scrubbed and rinsed. Historians still debate the extent to which these gatherings varied between urban centers like Istanbul and smaller provincial towns, but the social importance of communal laundry spaces remains undisputed. They provided more than just practical benefits. They were venues for social bonding, a gentle respite from daily demands. A charming detail is that some hammams offered special days or times for women's laundry. Imagine the scent of herbs infused in rinse water, the warmth of the sun on damp clothes, and the feeling of belonging that came from sharing these quiet rituals. Laundry, in this context, was as much about human connection as it was about cleanliness. As the day fades into evening, you see how these social customs made the repetitive task of washing clothes something tender and alive, a soothing pulse in the heart of Ottoman city life. You lean closer to the practical side of things now, the tools and techniques that Ottoman households and laundries used to bring garments back to life. Imagine the sturdy wooden washboards worn smooth by years of gentle scrubbing, copper basins catching the clear water, and wooden paddles rhythmically beating linens to release stubborn dirt and dust. Laundry wasn't a quick task, but one that required patience, skill, and a certain tender respect for fabrics. Silks, cottons, and woolens all needed their own careful treatment. You can almost feel the rough texture of a washboard under your palms, and hear the splash as clothes are plunged into rinse water infused with herbs and fragrant oils. Historians still argue over how widespread certain tools were, whether elaborate hammam laundering facilities or simple home setups dominated most communities. But the evidence suggests a mix, depending largely on social status and geography. A quirky tidbit: Some Ottomans use natural dyes not just for coloring, but also for refreshing old garments during laundry, dipping them briefly in baths of indigo or madder root. Whether this was a practical or purely aesthetic choice remains a topic of scholarly debate. You imagine clotheslines strung across sunlit courtyards, the gentle flapping of drying garments in the breeze like a soft lullaby. Techniques for drying and storing clothes were just as important as washing, ensuring that fabrics remained fresh and wearable through many seasons. Laundry tools and methods, humble though they may be, reveal a world of care and tradition, an intricate dance of hands, water, and fabric that quietly preserved Ottoman daily life. Your thoughts now drift to the tender aftercare of garments, the mending, folding, and storing that extended a piece's life well beyond its first wear. You picture a quiet room bathed in afternoon light, where worn hems are carefully stitched and tiny tears are coaxed closed with delicate, practiced fingers. Mending was a skill passed down quietly from mother to daughter, a labor of love that turned damaged clothing into stories of resilience and care. You almost hear the soft tapping of needles and the gentle whisper of thread pulling fabric back together, each stitch a small act of preservation. Historians still debate how widespread these mending practices were, whether poor families patched repeatedly while wealthier households preferred new garments. Yet, the emphasis on prolonging the life of clothing speaks to a broader culture of resourcefulness and respect for possessions. A curious detail: in some regions, mending included decorative patches or embroidered motifs, adding beauty to necessity and sometimes signaling social status or family heritage. Whether these were purely practical or also symbolic remains a gentle scholarly question. Storing clothes was another art form, carefully folded, often scented with dried herbs or flowers to keep moths away and linens fresh. You can imagine the soft rustle of fabric as drawers and chests were opened and closed, the subtle aroma of lavender or rose tucked within folds. Through these quiet acts, clothing became more than utility. It was a cherished companion, a tactile link between past and present, family and self. Laundry was never truly finished until care and preservation completed their delicate circle.